I still remember the morning I left home. Not because someone hugged me or wished me luck, but because of the silence. A silence so heavy it felt like the sky itself was holding its breath. The sun had barely risen, a soft orange glow spreading across our village fields as my mother stood by the door with trembling hands, pretending to fix her dupatta, even though she had tied it perfectly. My father sat on the charpai, coughing softly as if trying to hide the pain in his chest, and my little brother watched me with wide, confused eyes, too young to understand why his sister was leaving. No one spoke. Maybe they didn't know what to say. Or maybe they didn't believe this day would ever come. After all, no one from our village had ever dreamed of touching the sky. No one had ever dared to say, "One day I'll fly a plane." But I did. Even when I was small and ran barefoot through the fields, chasing the shadow of airplanes, shouting at the sky that one day I would sit inside one of them. The villagers used to laugh. Then they mocked. Then they told me to stop dreaming because girls like me were meant to live simple lives, to stay on the ground forever. But everything changed when our school announced a district-wide scholarship for aviation training. It was a chance so rare, it felt unreal. Everyone said it wasn't for someone like me, that rich children would take those seats, that a villager had no place near airplanes. But my father looked at me with tired eyes and whispered, "Try once. Even if the world laughs, God might smile." His words planted a seed of courage in me. I studied under lantern light, brushing mosquitoes away as I read thick textbooks I borrowed with a shy smile. My mother massaged my back every night because I refused to sleep before finishing one more chapter. My father walked miles to find old exam papers. My little brother drew paper airplanes for me, insisting I would fly real ones someday. And somehow a miracle happened. The results came, and my name was at the top of the district list. But the village did not celebrate. Instead, they whispered behind my back, saying I must have cheated, or that maybe my father begged someone for favors. They said I would embarrass them in the academy, that the rich would laugh at me. Their words hurt, but I kept packing. 3 sets of clothes, an old pair of shoes, my mother's shawl, my father's watch, and a heart full of fragile dreams. And now, standing at the edge of the village road, I watched the bus approaching through a cloud of dust. My mother's voice finally broke the silence as she said, "The world outside is not like here, beta. They won't understand your heart. Don't let their words break you." My father placed his trembling hand on my head and whispered a prayer. When I climbed onto the bus and looked out the window, my home grew smaller until it disappeared. But the silence stayed. But God still had a plan. Rahul, the quiet lab technician, approached me with shaking hands and whispered, "I know you didn't do it. I saw who did. It was Mira. I saw them hack the system." He promised to testify. The next morning, he told everything to the administration. Hidden logs proved the truth. My suspension was lifted, but the exam was happening that day. I ran to the hall, breathless but determined. I poured my soul into the written exam and performed flawlessly in the surprise advanced simulation. My landing was clean, and even instructor Armand said it was one of the best of the year. When results came, my name stood at the top. Mira's shock was visible. Her eyes flickered with disbelief, fear, and something even darker, humiliation. The hallway buzzed with whispers as cadets murmured about my score, some impressed, some confused, some secretly rooting for me now that the truth had begun to show through cracks in the academy's perfect walls. But Mira's group wasn't ready to lose. They had stepped on too many people to let a village girl rise above them. And deep inside, I felt it. The storm wasn't over. They were planning something else, something bigger. Something vicious. 2 weeks later, when the academy announced the final evaluation flight, I felt the entire batch tense with anticipation. This was the test that separated dreamers from pilots. Passing it meant real sky-level training. Failing it meant repeating the semester, or worse, giving up entirely. I felt excited but nervous, ready but cautious. But Mira looked like she had been waiting for this exam not to prove herself, but to destroy me. Strange things started happening again. When I tried accessing the training lab to print my flight prep notes, my ID showed access denied. Confused, I asked the technician, but he frowned and said my profile showed missing attendance and irregular system activity. I felt a chill run through my spine. My attendance? Missing? I had never missed a single drill. They checked again. 5 of my main training logs had disappeared. Deleted. Irrecoverable. My chest tightened. I knew this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted me to be disqualified before even reaching the aircraft. Whispers returned like poison in the hallways. She's under investigation again. Maybe she cheated twice. She's not stable enough to fly. I knew she'd get kicked out eventually. Every comment cut deeper than the last. When I tried sitting in the cafeteria, people moved away. I felt my throat tighten, but I refused to cry in front of them. Not again. Not now. But the real blow came on the morning of the evaluation flight. I walked toward the briefing hall, my heart hopeful, only to be stopped at the door. "Your name isn't on the list," the staff member said coldly. "You're not cleared for the flight." I stared at him in disbelief. "There must be a mistake. I passed the qualification exam." He shook his head. "Your clearance is pending due to inconsistencies in your record." The words felt like knives digging into my ribs. I took a step back, breath shaking, trying not to collapse. Inside the hall, cadets were already preparing, excitement buzzing like electricity in the air. Through the glass window, I could see Mira laughing with her group. When her eyes met mine, she smirked. A cruel, victorious smirk that said, "I told you I'd end you." I turned away, feeling the walls closing in around me. I walked outside and stood near the edge of the runway, tears finally spilling down my face. My dream, my entire life was slipping from my fingers again, and I was helpless. Just then, I heard someone call my name. I turned to see Rahul running toward me, breathless and pale. "I saw your records last night. They did it again." My heart stopped. "Who?" He swallowed hard. "Mira and her group. They bribed a junior staffer. I saw them delete your records with my own eyes. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them." For a moment, everything inside me fell silent, like the world paused to let the truth sink in. Then he added quietly, "I can prove it. The system keeps shadow logs. It records every manual deletion, even if someone tries to hide it." My breath quickened. Hope flickered in the darkness of my despair. "Will you tell the director?" Rahul nodded, though fear trembled in his eyes. "I will. Right now. I can't watch them destroy you." We walked together to the administration panel. My heart thumped louder than my steps. Rahul explained everything. How he saw Mira's group late at night, how they accessed a restricted terminal, how they used a proxy ID to delete my records. His voice shook, but he didn't back down. The administrators checked the logs, and the hidden entries flashed clearly on the screen. Multiple unauthorized access points tied to the same people. The director turned toward me, anger tightening his jaw. "Your records will be restored immediately." Relief washed over me like a warm wave. But then he added the evaluation flight begins in 5 minutes. If you want to take it, run. My heart jumped. 5 minutes. That was all I had to save my dream. I didn't think. I sprinted out of the office, down the hall, past stunned cadets, ignoring the burning in my legs and the fire in my lungs. When I reached the runway, the aircraft stood waiting, like a giant metal heartbeat. Instructor Armand looked at me, eyes wide. "Where were you?" he demanded. But before he could continue, he saw something in my eyes. Fear, determination, exhaustion, courage, all tangled into one trembling breath. "Get in," he said softly. I climbed into the seat. My fingers hovered over the controls, palms sweaty, heart pounding like a war drum inside my chest. The engine roared to life. The cockpit felt warmer than before, the sunlight reflecting off the windshield like a blessing I had forgotten. The instructor began the checklist, and I followed his words with mechanical precision. When the wheels lifted off the ground, the air felt different, lighter, freer, almost sacred. Each challenge came one after another, crosswinds, navigation recalculation, engine fluctuations, but my hands didn't shake. I wasn't flying with fear anymore. I was flying with purpose. Then came the fog simulation. The windshield turned white, swallowing the world outside. My breath faltered for a moment, but I tightened my grip on the controls and reminded myself that real pilots fly with their mind, not their eyes. When the fog cleared and the runway appeared again, I felt tears burning the corners of my eyes. The landing approached, my heart pounded, the plane tilted, the ground rose, I aligned carefully, breathing deeply, and finally, the wheels touched the runway with a smooth, perfect glide. When I stepped out of the cockpit, the world was quiet. Instructor Armand looked at me for a long moment, then said, "That was one of the cleanest evaluation landings I have seen in years." His words seeped into the cracks of my heart, like sunlight healing old wounds. Back in the academy, the director announced the results publicly. Cadet Ria Singh has passed her evaluation flight with exceptional performance. The hall fell silent. Mira's eyes whitened, her face pale as ash. Her group stood frozen, unable to speak. Then the director continued. Students responsible for tampering with academy systems are placed on disciplinary probation. This academy trains pilots, not bullies. I walked through the corridor after the announcement, and for the first time, cadets stepped aside from me not out of fear, but respect. Mira and her friends stood silently, unable to lift their eyes. As I walked past them, I didn't smile or gloat. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than their insults. My rise spoke louder than their hatred. My wings proved more than their words ever could. A week later, I returned home wearing my academy blazer. Children gathered around me, amazed. My mother cried when she saw me. My father, weak but smiling, placed his trembling hand on my cheek and whispered that the sky looked brighter now that I was part of it. Villagers who once mocked my dreams now watched me with awe, whispering that God had lifted me because my heart was pure. That night, as I stood outside my home and looked at the same sky I used to chase barefoot, I felt the truth settle inside me. The sky never asked where I came from. It only asked how far I was willing to go. I whispered softly into the breeze, I was the poor villager's daughter. But the sky knew my name long before they did. I stayed in the village for only a few days, but those days healed parts of me I didn't even realize were wounded. Each morning I woke to the sound of birds and felt the breeze touch my face like a blessing I had forgotten. Children followed me everywhere, asking endless questions about airplanes and buttons and clouds. My mother fussed over my meals as if feeding me could erase all the pain I had gone through. My father would sit quietly, watching me, the way a man watches a dream he once prayed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the fields, my father asked me to sit beside him. His breathing was slow, but his eyes were bright. "Beta," he said softly, "when you were small, you used to point at the sky and say you wanted to touch it. I thought it was just a child's fantasy. But you turned that fantasy into reality. Not because of money, not because of luck, but because of your stubborn heart. Never lose that." I placed my head on his shoulder and breathed in the scent of home, of soil, sweat, and hope. When it was time to leave, My family stood by the bus again. This time, the silence felt different. Not heavy, not fearful, but proud. My mother hugged me tightly. My father squeezed my hand with the strength he didn't really have. My brother pushed a crumpled paper airplane into my palm and whispered, "Fly higher than this one." When the bus pulled away, I didn't cry this time. I felt ready. The sky wasn't a dream anymore. It was a destination waiting for me. Returning to the academy felt surreal. As I walked through the gates, people looked at me differently. Some with respect, others with curiosity, and some with quiet guilt. The rich group avoided me entirely. Mira no longer walked with her head held high. She moved quickly, quietly, trying to make herself invisible. For someone who once ruled every hallway with arrogance, her silence felt like the greatest apology she could ever give. Training resumed at full speed. Our batch entered one of the toughest phases, the advanced flight module. Real aircraft, real pressure, real consequences. The first day we stood on the runway, watching the senior pilots perform a demonstration flight, my heart pounded with excitement. When the aircraft soared into the sky, slicing through clouds with effortless grace, I felt something inside me awaken again. The same feeling I had as a little girl chasing shadows across the fields. As days passed, my skills sharpened, my confidence grew. I wasn't the village girl trying to survive anymore. I was a pilot in training, someone with the future shaped by discipline, courage, and quiet fire. Instructors noticed it too. During a briefing, Instructor Armin placed a chart on the desk and said, "This slot here is reserved for the most promising cadet of the batch." His eyes lifted and locked onto mine. "Prepare yourself. You're close." Those words echoed through me long after the session ended. Being the most promising cadet wasn't just an honor. It was a shield. It meant no one could dismiss me again, not because of where I came from, but because of what I had become. But life has a way of testing you just when you think you found your balance. One afternoon, we had an unexpected cross-training session with senior cadets. During the simulation, my system suddenly began to lag, the screen glitching, the controls responding half a second late. In aviation, half a second can mean everything. I forced the aircraft into a safe maneuver, but the simulation score dropped. My jaw clenched. Someone had tampered with my system again, not severely, just enough to sabotage my performance quietly. I confronted the technicians. They checked. Someone had switched my station with an old faulty processor. Not an accident, not a coincidence, a deliberate attempt. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't break. I walked straight to the director's office and asked them to review the CCTV footage. Mira wasn't involved this time. It was another jealous cadet, someone who felt threatened seeing me rise so fast. The academy took immediate action. Equipment checks doubled, cadets were warned, and silently, I realized something powerful. The higher you rise, the more people will try to drag you down. But I kept rising. Weeks passed. My flight hours increased. My precision improved. My confidence grew. I wasn't the village girl trying to survive anymore. I was a pilot in training, someone with the future shaped by discipline, courage, and quiet fire. Instructors noticed it too. During a briefing, Instructor Armin placed a chart on the desk and said, "This slot here is reserved for the most promising cadet of the batch." His eyes lifted and locked onto mine. "Prepare yourself. You're close." Those words echoed through me long after the session ended. Being the most promising cadet wasn't just an honor, it was a shield. It meant no one could dismiss me again, not because of where I came from, but because of what I had become. One afternoon, after a long training session, as I walked toward the dorms, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I turned. Mira stood there. No friends, no makeup, no arrogance. Just a tired girl with swollen eyes and trembling hands. She looked at me, swallowed hard, and said, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. She continued, voice cracking, "I was wrong about you. I thought money made me better. I thought connections made me untouchable. But you showed me what real strength looks like. I'm ashamed." I didn't forgive her, but I didn't hate her either. People like her were never my enemies. They were just mirrors reflecting what society believes, that dreams belong to the wealthy. But I wasn't fighting them. I was fighting the beliefs that created them. The semester ended with our batch preparing for the official cadet parade. When the day arrived, hundreds of families, officers, and visitors filled the academy grounds. As we marched in formation, the director announced the Cadet of the Year award. My heart thumped so fast I could hear it echo in my ears. He read out the name, and for a moment, time froze. Cadet Rhea Singh. My breath caught. The ground beneath me felt unreal. People clapped, some cheered, cameras flashed. I stepped forward, my boots clicking on the stage like the footsteps of destiny. The director placed the badge on my uniform and whispered, "Your journey begins now." When I looked up, the sky stretched endlessly above me, calm and blue and full of promise. And in that moment, I realized something profound. I didn't rise to prove them wrong. I rose to prove myself right. Because the sky isn't owned by the rich. The sky isn't claimed by the privileged. The sky belongs to everyone bold enough to reach for it.